So let's get into it. Interior design. Why?
Why? I love bringing things back to the why.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Dream Select Realty Podcast. Whether you're a first-time home buyer, a seasoned buyer, an investor, or just someone curious about the ins and outs of real estate, you're in the right place. Each episode, we break down the complexities of the real estate world into clear, actionable insights. Our goal is to empower you with the knowledge you need, whether you're taking your first steps into home ownership or expanding your investment portfolio. Thanks for tuning in, and let's dive right into today's episode. I'll be your host, Mervin Leonor. Today, we have a very special guest coming from Green Velvet. We have Samantha Lopez, the interior designer. Samantha, how are you?
I'm doing excellent. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. I like when people say they're doing excellent, not just good, because there's a difference between being good and being great. Thanks for coming out here today to talk to us.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
So let's get into it. Interior design. Why?
Why? I love bringing things back to the why.
So what made you jump into interior design?
Well, I've always been an artist. / a designer. I grew up dancing. I did a little bit of acting as well. I was into the hand skills. But when it came time to hone in on what I wanted to actually do with my career, I was between interior design and architecture. And I really considered both paths because I am, from a bird's eye view, I'm passionate about both of those things. But I ended up choosing interior design. I studied it. I got my BFA in interior design from FIT. And it's been incredible since. I'm so grateful that I chose the right thing sort of right out the gate.
Okay, good. Talk to us about Green Velvet.
Yeah. Green Velvet is an interior design company that I started 2 years ago, unofficially maybe 3. I always describe it as sort of a product of COVID. A lot of maybe some great things were. This happened to be one of them. And I was in the industry. I was freelancing because at the time, people in the hospitality sector specifically were not hiring full time. And so I was doing a lot of freelance for different firms, different designers, et cetera. And energetically, I was open to receiving opportunities.
Sure.
And I did on a soul level. And I consulted for this incredible project, Maxwell Social in Tribeca. If you don't know about it, you can look it up. It's really unique. That was my first consulting freelance as Samantha Lopez. And then Green Velvet happened after that when I realized, and I got incredible advice from a mentor, that if you want to start your own business one day, why not just do it now? You'll learn way more making mistakes with your own money than you will with someone else's.
Probably the best lessons you can get.
Do it now. and so I did, and I haven't looked back since.
Okay. So as a New York-based designer, right, how do you bring some of those elements of your urban aesthetic to residential and commercial products?
Yeah. Urban aesthetics are very, very niche and very interesting.
Okay.
And what I really admire about an urban aesthetic is how layered it is. In an urban environment, it's really what people like to say a melting pot of different cultures, different styles. And I would say that I definitely bring that to my designs. I would say that I'm very talented in taking maybe what this one client wants with their partner, or that, the husband and wife, they have a different idea. This business partner and that business partner have a different idea. Maybe this brand spans multiple different aesthetics. Maybe this personal family's aesthetic does. But something that I'm very good at is taking all of these different ideas, concepts, and aesthetics and making it sing together.
Okay, so let's talk about the way that you make things sing together. What's the idea process that you go through when someone is asking for what your services look like?
In terms of design.
Yes.
And the design ideation process.
Yes, ma'am.
I always start that with context of the project. I always bring it back to the roots around the project. So if someone comes to me and they say, for example, I'll give a real example that I just worked on this vintage camper renovation that's now this mobile cigar and bourbon lounge based on Long Island, and the purpose is to have it rented out for parties with an incredible friend and colleague, Event Pros, that is their company. So they have this camper, and they came to me and said, we have this concept for, a name, that's it. the first thing I did was research about the year of that camper, 76. I wasn't alive then, but I did a little bit of research about it.
Sure.
And I took into consideration the prominent color schemes of that time period: avocado green, burnt orange, some browns. I took into consideration pop culture from that time period. Who was actually buying these campers at that time period? I could have taken this concept and said, oh, well, I love a camper. Let me make it, I don't know, random, like Barbie themed. No, let's bring it back to the roots of what we have going on here, the location. All of these things that come to consideration. That way, when you look back, and perhaps, and it does happen often, you get lost during the design process, you always have this anchor that stays true to what the project is about. So any decision that comes from that original source has to be right.
Sure. Okay. All right. So if it has to be right, it kind of leads into our next question, right? What are some common design challenges you face here in New York with diverse spaces, and how do we make decisions based off commercial versus private residences? Like, what kind of challenges do you see when you have to do your job?
There are probably as many challenges as you could even think of. I mean, sometimes one of the biggest challenges the team that it takes to execute a project. And sometimes people put that team together in the wrong order. So sometimes they'll go to a real estate agent, and then an architect, and then a designer, and then, like, if it's a commercial space, then a branding person, when in reality, some of that should be flipped around. Maybe you could even start with the designer in terms of brand and interiors. They would sort of influence what your concept is, maybe have a say in the location it should be, also get into involvement with the architect ahead of time. Maybe then it's the real estate agent after. That way you have a clear set path of what you want the space to be, where you want it to be, et cetera. So that's one of the challenges that I see as well. And then one of the more obvious ones, especially in New York, is the size of the spaces, right? There's a lot of small spaces in New York, and it's a super common thread to say, how do we optimize space here?
Okay. So in terms of functionality and aesthetics, I love the fact that a lot of your answers are leading right into some of the other questions that I'm asking. So in terms of functionality and aesthetics, how do you ensure a commercial space is welcoming for customers?
And that's also super interesting because it's something we do often is we bring it back to residential. Like, you'll see me and my colleagues say a lot when we're designing, for example, a reception area to a public space, that we want to incorporate a residential style desk. And this is something that's fairly new, I would say, post-COVID. One of the things that COVID did to sort of flip the industry on its back is people spent a lot of time at home. They don't want to be out in public as much anymore. What are ways that we can make these spaces more relatable and more inviting? And so something that we do a lot is make things a little bit more residential. We're getting rid of those bulky reception desks. We're getting rid of sofas that look like they belong in some sort of surgeon's office.
Sure.
We're making things way more comfortable, way more plush.
Okay. So as we continue to talk about how we're working with different spaces and either too small or too big, what are some trends that you're seeing out here on Long Island that should get a homeowner excited?
Nick Cesarini, Weatherstone Mortgage is proud to partner with Dream Select Realty. We understand in this environment how hard it is to find the right home. You really need the right realtor and the right financial tools to be able to make that dream come true. Please reach out to either Dream Select Realty or Weatherstone Mortgage to start the process of that dream.
What are some design trends that you've been seeing?
Some design trends that I've been seeing, and maybe it's a little more on social media, but that's a great way to see stuff these days.
Yes, absolutely.
Is people are doing a lot of these IKEA furniture flips. Have you seen this?
I have seen them.
Have you seen this?
I've seen them because people are, it's almost like if they're buying either older IKEA furniture and then they're redesigning it by buying new handles, they're spray painting it, finishing it, and then they're either flipping it or incorporating it into their spaces to make them look super functional. I'm not a fan of IKEA furniture.
Yes.
I even hate it down to the packaging where it just has fingers pointing as to what you're supposed to put together.
Yeah.
And I'm old school, so they drive me nuts. But I have seen some of these trends.
Yeah, I love that you've seen it because you know exactly what I'm
Yes,
talking
ma'am.
about. And I love them and I hate them. I like the concept of design and like custom pieces being more accessible to the average person. Because
Yes.
yeah, because if I'm doing a project, I have like a dedicated team for everything that I've been working with. And one of them is a mill worker. So if I'm doing built-in cabinetry, I will have my talented mill worker. I will plug him happily, Alex from Shaped Design Adventures.
Sure.
He will make something custom. We're not going to go to IKEA, buy a Billy bookcase, and then put that in the wall and then like spackle around it to make it look built in. Obviously, we're not going to do that. That's not why you hire a designer. But the fact that homeowners are becoming more inspired in having this luxurious look, but at a more accessible level, and they're thinking this way because they're seeing other people think that way, and they're sort of following these ideas and these templates. I think that's very exciting for the average
It
person.
is, and I also think that going back to that, because a lot of these ideas came up from COVID, right? So I started seeing the IKEA trends take off just from people making their home workspace, right? Where
Right.
they're buying a butcher block from IKEA, getting the Alex drawers, and then half of the people on the internet, that's now their home setup. They just refinished it to make it theirs. But I also like what you said, that now it seems as if regular homeowners like myself have access to more custom pieces too, because we have more people being inspired in making these pieces. So I think it kind of all comes around full circle,
For sure.
which should probably make your job super interesting. Plus, at the same time, it gives people more ideas. So therefore, you will forever be employed because people are always going to be inspired to want to make some changes. So that's good too. So is there any project where you've integrated smart home technology that you wish to talk about?
Absolutely.
All right, let's hear it.
Smart home technology is just becoming incredible. I mean, I've worked on, and it's more so in the private residential space.
Sure.
There's a project I worked on in upstate New York. Everything solar, heated floors, using regenerative materials, sustainable materials, things like this. And I've also worked on a project that's on Long Island where the client was a quadriplegic. Now you can imagine how important technology is in that case. I mean, it's just incredible, like what can happen. And the way that AI is plugging into this whole scenario is that it's actually, they're starting to have this technology where it becomes aware / is just paying attention to your habits
And
as
trends,
a,
yep.
yeah, as a homeowner, exactly. So you don't even have to go in and program it to say, turn off at 5 p.m., whatever. It'll look at the days, the times, when you turn off your lights, when do you actually ask Google a question, when are you turning on the TV, when are you turning on music, what station are you putting the music onto, what temperature are you putting the room to, maybe even based on the day of the week. Maybe your husband is home like at 6 a.m. and you leave after that, whatever, he likes the place warmer versus colder. It's paying attention to those things.
Sure.
And it's super interesting how even the home environment is becoming automated in a way that is helpful.
Now, do you see that this new smart home technology, is it still kind of like, so let's think for a new homeowner, someone who's going to want to buy a new home. I'm starting to think that the more smart home technology that we're seeing means that it should be a little more accessible to some of the new homeowners, correct? What do you think?
Absolutely. And something else too that we're seeing that should be extremely accessible and maybe even be, I like to think of it as almost the new standard. What is the new standard in development? I would say it needs to change pretty quick on Long Island, and I would like to be a part of that, and I will be a part of that in ways that is beyond just technology. I think also accessibility is a huge topic that I like to talk about as well. But one of the ones is, how many homes on the market are you seeing with EV chargers for your electric cars? The number that you're seeing is not the same number of EV cars that you're seeing on the road. So you're seeing these commercial places pick up on that and take notes. You're seeing your office have them, maybe Sam's Club, insert here.
Sure.
But how many developers / real estate agents / interior designers and architects, people in the industry, how many of them are stepping up to the plate and making that the new standard?
And not many.
No.
I love how you brought that up. And then the fact that you want to be a part of that movement, I mean, it speaks volumes too as we continue to progress as a country, especially out here on Long Island. I know that we have a good amount of new home builds that are up to code, but we also have a lot of older homes that people are looking to remodel. So you would say that that's an idea for them to start incorporating into them.
Oh yeah, that's a great idea. And one of my other great ideas, if I do say so myself, is barrier-free living, meaning accessibility in terms of being handicapped, wheelchairs, or even strollers. Like we're seeing a lot of homes, if you're driving down the street, if you haven't noticed it, I promise you will now, where you see this really ugly metal ramp that's coming from someone's front door leading into their driveway. What if, and hear me out for a second, we just made them barrier-free to begin with? you think with the end in mind, because aging is going to happen regardless, right? But what if, God forbid, an accident happens? Or what if, thankfully, you have a child and you have a stroller? You know, these are things that people, and by people I mean architects, designers, and developers, aren't taking into consideration when they're building a home. People love, designers, architects, and developers, to do things cheap and quick. That is the opposite of what I believe in. I believe in doing it right the first time by the people who you anticipate will live in it, and doing it to code and to quality.
Okay. You're bringing up a lot of good stuff. And I love the fact that we're talking about some of these older homes out here too, right? So how do you handle the unique architectural features of New York homes and businesses while implementing your particular design vision?
You know, I would say a lot of the bare bones are okay. Like, you know, a lot of the stuff that you may not want to change because it would be time consuming and costly, i.e. layout, you can probably leave it. But it's the finishes that I'm seeing in these homes that really need to be changed or could be changed, and it would bring in extreme value. I mean, we're looking at things like the floor, the wood floor, these countertops, the cabinetry. A lot of it is outdated. I would say if you were to maybe pick like one thing to do, it would be the kitchen.
100%.
It would be the kitchen. And then the second thing that I would do, which is more work, but incredible ROI, is the windows. Make them bigger. I don't know what was going on in people's minds when they put these tiny little windows. Daylight is so important for our mental health, especially as we're spending way more time at home, you know? So I would say the main challenge that I'm seeing in these homes, aside from the finishes on the inside, if we're talking about things that are more structural, are the windows.
Okay, so let's get away from the script and these questions because I love the direction you're going with that. So I'm a brand new homeowner.
Okay.
Right.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. Just purchased my first home out here in Long Island.
Hi, my name is Tyrone. I'm the owner and trainer here at Fly Fitness. We work with children of all ages, sports-specific training, soccer, basketball, lacrosse, football, you name it, we do it here. We also work with the beginner, the person that has never been in the gym before. We get you from point A, point B, and we take you through the alphabet of training. We also do rehab, ankles, back, knees, shoulders. The older we get, the more fragile we are. So those things that I just mentioned, those are things that we're definitely going to need help with. That's what we specialize in here at Fly Fitness. Come and join us.
Awesome.
Let's just pick a spot. Smithtown. I like Smithtown, right? Yeah. As a brand new homeowner, if I'm consulting you, right, walk me through that process. If I have a home, let's say I have a one-story ranch home, right? It's a little older, built in the 60s, needs immediate updating. Let's add to the scenario, I'm an investor, purchased my first home, and now I want to get that ROI you're talking about. So walk me through your process as I'm walking through that home. What are you looking at and where would you direct me? We already mentioned the kitchen. What parts of the kitchen? Like, let's get into that.
Yeah. I would say also if you came to me and you were an investor looking to take this property and flip it versus you were an individual or a family who is looking to stay in that, whether it's short-term or long-term, those are two very different conversations that we're
100%.
having. Yeah.
Because if I'm owning the home for me, I'm going to want to make specific changes that I'm going to like that aren't necessarily going to tailor to other people. If I'm an investor, now I have to rely on you to flip a space so that it can tailor to multiple audiences versus one. You're absolutely right on that. How long does that process take for you to walk into a home and kind of gather an idea of how much change you need to make?
I mean, it's so immediate you would be scared.
So you find yourself driving down the street at times and you're looking at different homes and you're picking out the things that you would change. Is that what your thought process looks like?
I mean, even down to like I'm at a restaurant, I'm sitting down, I'm looking around, I'm in a bathroom at a restaurant or an office. I'm even I'm looking at what's on this desk here at keyboard design. Like design in general is something that I pay attention to at a very granular level and also a very bird's eye view. And I'm always thinking about things that I would do differently and things that I would improve. Because in my opinion, if you were to take yourself and plop yourself in maybe like the 70s, 60s, 80s, around that time period, design was so much better. Like, oh my gosh, the cars that were going down the road, and now I have to look at a Kia Sorento. Are you kidding me?
I definitely think that back then folks were a little more unique in their artistic expressions than what we are now. Now we're a little more on that cookie cut kind of time frame. But yeah, I agree with the Kia Sorento. So let me ask you this: as an interior designer, what what are some misconceptions that business owners or homeowners have about what you do? And then how do you address them?
I would say the main one is, and I've found that this is also a generational gap. People oftentimes think that the term interior designer and interior decorator are interchangeable, and they're actually not. An interior decorator focuses on things like the paint, the wall covering, the ceiling treatment, the floor treatment, the furniture, pillows, decorative objects. An interior designer, by term and by trade and by studying, also influences things that a lot of, or let me actually rephrase that. An interior designer, by trade and by knowledge and by practice, have a lot of influence on the interior architecture of a space. So it's way more decorative. So we actually sit down and we influence things like space planning and flow and circulation. We focus on things like egress, really important stuff. What's inside of a wall. If there was a fire, how long is it going to take for that fire to take down that wall? That number is different, and that material we would use is different than if it was a public space versus a private space. How many people are going to be occupying that space? We're looking at the rating of the type of furniture that we're picking for public versus private. We're really looking at things from a different view, but that's not to say that interior designers don't also do interior decorating. We do that as well, but it's just this term that sometimes people are sort of misinterpreting that I think people get wrong a lot.
I definitely think that there's a lack of education there. So before you came in, I was talking to our gracious host, and we were discussing one of the questions that I wanted to ask you was, what was your thought process behind staging? Because I immediately, because again, I'm public dumb, so I immediately think that an interior designer and interior decorator are the same, and then I'm thinking that all of you guys are also responsible for staging a home before after it sells. And he was like, absolutely not. That's not what we're doing. So the fact that you're clarifying that for that now, it makes a lot more sense to me. So I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Okay, let's ask you this. Now I'm gonna get a little personal, but I want you to give me everything you have. Either for a brand new homeowner or a current homeowner, why would they pick Green Velvet? Why would they pick Samantha Lopez? What makes you different than every other interior designer out here on Long Island or New York?
I can promise you that the design will be better if you go with Green Velvet, if that's important to you. And so will the process. I've seen a lot of designers in the market, and it's not a bad thing, but they're a little bit outdated. The process, the style, maybe even the attitude, maybe even the energy. I think we can feel in a lot of sectors this younger generation who is coming to the table with a whole new lens and a whole new framework on what does design even mean? What does anything really even mean?
Sure.
You know? And so working with Green Velvet, we're excellent at process in a very fresh and new way. For example, we have this incredible project management software where it's super easy to go in and say yes, no to the things that you like and don't like. We make it collaborative. I feel like a lot of times one of the main pain points I hear from clients who have worked with other interior designers is that they remain inaccessible throughout the entire process, and also they're really not executing it properly. I've also heard from builders on the scene who say, oh my gosh, that interior designer on the project, we didn't even have an RCP. And for those who are listening, that is just a plan of the ceiling showing where different lights go and things like this. And they're like, oh my gosh, it was like pulling teeth. It'll never be like that, like working with us, because we want the process to be smooth as well for everyone involved. We want everyone to feel like they have all the knowledge and control at their fingertips at any point during the process. It should be a collaboration. It should be a concert between all the parties involved, from the architect to the homeowner.
Okay, kind of like a dance. Okay, so if we have new homeowners or existing homeowners that want to get a hold of you or want to see some of the work that you've done, I'm sure you're all over social media, right? Do you care to share some of your pages where they can go take a look at what Green Velvet is doing?
I would love to. You can go to @GreenVelvetNY on Instagram or online, or insert here YouTube, TikTok, etc.
Sure.
For social media, it's @GreenVelvetNY, and then online for our website, it's greenvelvetny.com.
And that's where they can get a hold of you as well.
Absolutely.
Well, Samantha, I really appreciate you spending time with us today to talk about the intricacies of interior design and green velvet. Thanks for joining us today on the Dream Select Realty Podcast. As we get ready to wrap up once again, please visit us at www.dreamselectrealty.com or follow us on Instagram at Dream Select Realty, TikTok, also handle at Dream Select Realty, or on X, previously known as Twitter, Dream Select Home. We appreciate you tuning in today for yet another episode of the Dream Select Realty Podcast. Thank you, Samantha, once again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you so much.
All right.